So you think you want to buy an 05 to 09 Subaru Legacy in 2021? You might want to think again. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to focus this episode on anyone that kind of wants to buy one of these cars in 2021 and what it entails to own one of these cars that's 15-year-old in Subaru in 2021. Especially a turbo Subaru. The NA is not as much, even though they do have their flaws. The first thing I want to touch on if you want to buy one of these cars in 2021 is do a compression check and possibly a leak down test. There's other ways you can kind of look for certain things, you know, like looking for bubbles in the overflow, radiator overflow, to see, you know, that maybe there's some oxygen pushing through there. Pulling the oil cap and seeing if there's smoke, any sort of smoke coming out of the oil cap. You know, but really you want to take it into a shop to, you know, to get pressure tested, leak down tested, and compression tested. It's going to tell you the health of the motor. That's going to be the biggest thing with these. And what's been done, if you can find one stock that you can mod yourself, that's preferable because you kind of know what you're getting. Some of these cars with a bunch of mods on them, you'll never even know what you're getting. So this is the engine bay of my 2005 4th generation Legacy GT. It is the wagon with the 5-speed manual. You know, you have your intercooler, your intake, alternator, etc. If this doesn't look too daunting to you, as Subarus can to some people, you might enjoy owning one of these. This one runs really great. They do have a reputation for ring and ringland issues, so you want to make sure your oil's checked. And the biggest thing, again, is to, when you buy one of these, is to get a compression check. Either do it yourself or bring it to a shop and have them do it. And if you can't, there's some other ways that you can, like I said before, that you can kind of hedge your bets a little bit. So, not sure that you can see it. You might be able to see it, but there's the belts, the serpentine belts. And then if you see that cover right there, that is the timing belt cover. And if you can undo those bolts and kind of just take a look at the timing belt real quick, that'll tell you a little bit of a story at least. But look at these belts. Mine, look at that bracket. It's so ugly. This is a work in progress in here, so it's but my belts are all in pretty good condition. They're not shredding. They're not. I took off and looked at the timing belt, and it seems like it's been replaced fairly recently. So just another thing to look at, you know, when you go to buy one of these Subaru GTs. You know, the NAs, you know, won't have the intercooler on top. It has an air box back here, and really you're looking for the head gasket leaks, bubbles in the overflow tank for those NAs. That's the big one for those, is that just has good head gaskets. And really, buy a Subaru where the head gaskets have already been done. My last 3rd gen I bought, and the head gaskets and timing belt had been done 3,000 miles before, and so that was already taken care of, and that's a big one, obviously. And I had no further problems for the next 3 years that I owned the car. So, you know, basic maintenance, brakes, stuff of that nature, but nothing major, and the head gasket was fine. That's the big thing: leaks, burning oil, and coolant. So keep it in mind. So the cool thing about these motors is that you can see the head gaskets from underneath or up top. It's easier on the driver's side up top. It's right down in there somewhere, so we can get it focused. You're not going to be able to see it, it's getting dark out. From the underneath you can definitely see it, and once your skid plate's removed, you can totally see the head gaskets. So it's easy to see if there's leaks or whatnot. Don't forget to visually inspect the head gaskets wherever you can. So the next thing is going to be, if you live in like the Northeast, Midwest, places where they use salt on the roads, Subarus rust. So you want to be very careful and look carefully when you buy a Subaru for the rust. This one had one little spot. It had some other surface rust that I was able to kind of take care of. Not on the body was clean, except for this one little bubble, which I started to take care of. and make sure that it doesn't, try to make sure it doesn't come back. It sort of always seems to, unless you weld metal in, and this wasn't bad enough. It was just a surface rust bubble. But rust, if you want to buy one of these in 2021, look for rust. Try to pull these wheel well liners back. Look right all under the wheel arches, because really, like, a lot of the rust starts in this region here, so along these back arches. Open the door and look under the doors and see if there's any rust there. So if you want to buy one of these, rust. Look for rust. Rust on your control arms behind the tires. Rust on the subframes. The rear subframes also can rust out pretty badly in these. I mean, it's a 16-year-old car, so they can rust out. Look very carefully underneath the car for rust as well as the body, although generally it starts somewhere in here. So the next thing is, even if you find a stock one of these like I did, the stock tune from the factory runs lean. So you really want to get the stage 1 tune out of the way, and you don't have to have any mods on the car to do that. But just a forewarning, for these GTs and these 4th gens, the factory tune, I'm not sure about the Spec Bs, but I know the GTs, the factory's tune was pretty lean, and you want to get that taken care of, and that'll be another sort of reliability thing. But you want to figure out kind of which tune it's on, and sometimes the previous owner knows, sometimes they don't. The previous owner of this car seemed to think that it was still on the factory tune, and I tend to believe him. I still have the factory downpipe, and most of the factory parts, although it's good, it's almost time. The OE catalytic converters are worth quite a bit of money now. So, but yeah, you know, anytime you mod it, it's going to need a tune, and try to figure out which tune you have on it before it goes. If he has a Cobb access port, this one had nothing, so I tend to believe him that it was the stock tune. And I now have the BT SSM app, which kind of tells me that yes, it's probably still on the stock tune, and I need to get it flashed ASAP for the stage 1. So anyway, that's just one of the things I wanted to mention about the car. It's just another point of attention that you have to give this car, and this car takes more attention than your average, I don't know, Kia Soul or whatever. So the same thing applies to any used car purchasing as it does to this car. Like, there's a few extra things for these cars, but basically the same thing's going to apply. Does it have the correct amount of coolant? Does the suspension look good? Are the struts leaking? How's the paint? Is it oxidized? Is there cracks in the taillights? Do all the lights work? And on and on and on. And most of us that go looking for used cars already know a lot of this stuff, and I'm not going to go over everything. I'm not even going to go over most of it, because you all know that, like, when you go look for a car, you need to check it if it has oil. That kind of goes without saying. The big things is just the fluids in the motor, and rust. If you live in the Northwest or the Northeast or the Midwest, where they use salt on the roads, these cars can go to shit pretty quick. The subframes can be pretty bad. I've looked at a few of these and looked under the back to the rear subframe, and it was just rotted out. Look at the rear subframes when you go to buy these cars, and the front subframes, but the rear subframes, I have found plenty when I go show up to look at one of these cars. And this is New York, so it's an inspection state, and the whole subframe's rotted out, and it would never pass inspection. Rust wasn't a big problem for this car, but it can be, so be careful. So there's some good news about these cars. It's not all doom and gloom like I've made it seem, and hopefully it hasn't seemed that way, although, you know, it sometimes does because of the oil consumption issue. But the good news is, if you work on cars like I do, I'm a dumbass that refuses to take his car to a shop. I'm not a professional. I've never been a professional. So the good news is that there's a ton of forums, there's a ton of Facebook groups, there's a ton of resources for questions, write-ups, YouTube, there's tons of videos, like pretty much for every aspect of these cars. It's been 15 years. You just search on Google for 10 seconds and 90% of the things you find solutions for already. You don't have to go to the groups, although some people have a problem with the Google search bar. That's not my issue. But the good news is there's a lot of help. You might get dragged in a comment section, but there is a lot of help.
So let's keep it friendly in the groups, guys. It can get a little bit brutal, but I also hope somebody else can find the Google search bar as well. Anyhow, the good news is there's a lot of help for you in diagnosing and any sort of problems you run into working on your own Subaru. The stereo in here is also a consideration, and it seems like a small thing, but if you wanted to put an aftermarket stereo in here, the stereo and the HVAC controls are all one unit. So as you can guess, if you wanted to put an aftermarket stereo in here, you can't really do that because then you lose all your HVAC controls. Yeah, so that is not ideal. Now, they do sell kits that separates the HVAC controls from a bezel for the radio, so you can get like a double DIN touchscreen radio. Unfortunately, that kit is around $300, $250 to $350, I think, and then that doesn't even include the cost of the stereo. So, anyways, that's what you're gonna. And this is like a 6-disc changer radio. Blah blah blah. For the moment, I've decided not to, and I've just gone to a FM sort of transmitter, so I get like kind of the functionality, but it's not great that those controls are all in the same big unit. I'm sure people take the bezel off thinking that it's two pieces, and it really isn't. It's all one big unit. So you got to buy the $300 kit and a touch screen, and then you can have your problem solved. Oh, and the extra wiring. You can get that from, I think, iWire. And it's, all ready to go for you. That's one of the other things with this is it's really not awesome to put a aftermarket stereo in here. So that's going to bring us to the end of our guide to buying a Subaru Legacy 4th gen in 2021. So if you're looking to buy one of these, like I said, you might want to think again. I've outlined some reasons why you might want to think again. But if you're like me and you like to tackle, small projects with cars and sometimes big projects with cars, and you like tinkering with your car and getting a little bit more out of it, this might be the car for you. Good luck on your 4th gen Subaru Legacy search. Thanks for watching.